Steve Taylor with Think HR and Insurance Services. We create benefit plans you understand so you actually use them. So, one of the questions I get quite often is if our company is a small business, like you're under 100 employees, and we're in multiple different states, who's the best carrier? Who's the best? Is it UHC? Is it Aetna? Is it Cigna? Is it Blue Shield? What is it, one of the blues? Which blue is where? And I think it really depends. And I'll share this with you. I'll give you a scenario. If you're a company, and let's just say you're headquartered in California, and you've got 17 people, and each one of those people is in 17 different states, well, maybe a PEO makes sense for you, right? Unless you got a good payroll set up, you may not want to manage all those different accounts and stuff. But as far as the carriers are concerned, if your situs state, meaning your headquarters state, is out of California, that's where you operate out of, then I really think one of the better plans generally is UHC. Why? Well, it depends on the workforce, of course. If a lot of the people are in, let's say, Florida, places like Alabama, where they're maybe used to the different blues, like in Alabama, they have the blues and they have Florida Blue, there's Blue Shield of California. Those plans are national plans. They are national plans, even though it says Blue Shield of California. But as far as like when you're trying to recruit people, it can be difficult for people who are newer, or maybe they're just coming off of their parents' plan. Mind you, like in states like Florida, somebody might be coming off the plan. They're 30 years old. It's the first time I've ever had to like look at a plan outside of their parents, and they see Blue Shield of California, and they might feel like, oh, you know what? I wouldn't even get covered here. And they may even skip out on working with you for that. Now, is that something I think happens all the time? No, it doesn't. I think with a little bit of good education, I think the Blues are a great carrier for anybody that's in Florida and nationally. But, the reason why I like UHC is one, I haven't really been very many places that it's not accepted. I personally have lived in now California. I'm on UHC. I was on Aetna and UHC when I was living in Florida at two different times with two different companies. And in New York, I was on Aetna and I was on Anthem as well when I was in California. And I was born in a Kaiser and grew up using Kaiser all the time. And when I look at all those different platforms, I think they all have their pluses and minuses. But quite frankly, I think UHC has been the easiest one for me to deal with. And the main reason being is they have a large network. It's a little easier to understand just from a branding perspective, right? It's not UHC California, UHC Florida. It's just UHC. It's super simple. So, if that matters to the people that you're interviewing, if that matters to employees that you're talking to, then yeah, you're going to want to take that into consideration. Another carrier that I find is absolutely fantastic, even if you're in multiple states, customer service is just out of this world, is Cigna. So with Cigna, and it does depend, all these carriers do depend on which plan level you get, because most of the time I'll hear grumblings from people, I don't like Cigna. I didn't have a good experience with them. I don't like UHC. I didn't have a good experience with them. They didn't hardly cover anything. Then if I were to dig a little bit deeper and ask them to drum up one of their cards from that time, it's like, well, I mean, you were on like a HMO plan or you were on an in-network only plan that just quite frankly did not make sense for your group. I've ran into companies that have had employees in multiple states. Maybe they started off in Florida. Florida's a big one where this happens. You start off in Florida, they write an HMO or an NHP plan on UHC. Then all of a sudden it's like, oh, we got people in 15 different states, but these people that are in 15 different states are written on an HMO plan, not a PPO plan. So then they don't really have access to all the providers that they think they have access to, or they should, because of how the plan is written. So, that being the case, you do want to be mindful of your demographics. You want to be mindful of your workforce. When you're choosing a carrier, I think it is important to always look at the group demographics and try the best you can to predict what is going to be the people strategy. That's why, when I learned how to use insurance and buy it for clients, um, 10 plus years ago, I always started off with understanding like the payroll, how much are people getting paid? What can they afford? What's the budget of the company? Because if I work with a nonprofit, they may say these folks only make $50,000, $60,000 a year at this nonprofit, but we would pay 100% for benefits. We want them to have platinum level, 5-star benefit package. We want dental, vision, life, pet insurance, every single thing, and they pay for all of that. And that's one of the perks that they want to offer as a nonprofit. And then at times there's people who are, bootstrapped and or they've been in business for 30 years, and there's a lot of economic changes that have, made either their supply chain more expensive. They're having to really like squeeze margins. So, they need to come up with strategies where it's like, how do we pick a carrier that works for our employee demographic, but also works for our budget? How do we make this happen? And that's when we have to start getting a little bit creative. So, when I am asked about carrier fit for a group, I do think there's a lot of different things you got to look at. So those are some of my thoughts just on carriers at large. Hopefully that was helpful to you in just picking my brain as a broker. For more tips, information on which carrier would make the most sense for you, feel free to book a strategy session with us. We do group benefit plans for companies between 5,000 on down to 2 people or a startup, right? So if you have questions on which carrier is right for you, we'd be glad to chat with you and see if we can be helpful in any way. Okay, take care.